This is the Cool Photo Tools Podcast, episode number 98, December 19th, 2016.
Are you sick of trying to learn all the new photo software? Are you tired of hearing about the next big thing in photography? Well, neither are we. Welcome to Cool Photo Tools with Jay Pierstorff and Rhonda Spencer.
Today's program is brought to you by Skillshare. For a limited time, get 3 months of Skillshare Premium for just 99 cents. Anyone can take an online class, watch video lessons, and create projects. Over 4,000 premium classes. Go to coolphototools.com/Skillshare for your discount code. That's coolphototools.com/Skillshare. Good morning, cool heads, and welcome to another episode of the Cool Photo Tools Podcast. My name is Jay Pierstorff, and in the back of the studio we have Rhonda Spencer and a special guest, Justin Haugen from Tucson, Arizona, all the way from Tucson, Arizona. Welcome, Justin.
Thank you for having me on.
Our pleasure. And Rhonda, are you awake back there?
Yeah.
Usually just jump right in and say something else.
Oh, well, I had to fight traffic coming here today. It's like, we won't even say anything anymore.
Okay.
All right.
Well, it's that time of year when it gets, really busy in Tucson. We have a lot of winter visitors because the weather is really, really nice here. So you can't really blame them. That's why we're here. It's December and, we're sipping margaritas by the pool. So what can you say?
Oh, don't let him kid you. If we're Tucsonians, we're not by the pool. We're in big winter jackets because we don't handle the cold well.
If it drops below 45 degrees, I've got to have a huge winter coat on.
See?
Yeah. Well, they say the blood gets thin, in this climate. So perhaps that is true. All right. Well, Justin, welcome. We've been trying to get Justin on the podcast here for a couple of months, and he's like, "Oh, I'm too busy. No, I'm too busy. No, I'm too busy. No, I'm too busy." And finally, he's like, "Okay, I can do it today." I'm like, "Okay, good. Come on down." So those of you that don't know Justin, let me switch over and show you show me his website here. Those of you that are on our YouTube channel, Justin Haugen is a fixture here in Tucson. He's actually, besides being an awesome photographer and doing lots of cool stuff there, he's been doing this really weird thing where he's been uniting photographers that are in the Tucson. He's got a Facebook page, Tucson Aspiring and Professional Photographers, which has a huge number of people that are subscribed to that and check in on this stuff. And then he also he teaches stuff. He's very generous with his time and is helpful to aspiring photographers and whatnot as well. So his website is at justinhaugen.com, which is JustinHaugen.com. And let's see here. We've got also he's been featured on the MagMod website, which is at magnetmod.com, which he's got. There's a big article on here and some of his techniques. We're going to talk more about magnet mods or MagMods today, as Justin knows all about those. And he also has a blog, which is learningtolight.com. Learningtolight.com, which he very generously shares his knowledge and techniques. Learningtolight.com. So what was your inspiration on this website, Justin, to get out there and help? Why are you helping your competition? Just curious.
Well, I'm actually partnered with a photographer named Kevin Geary from Atlanta. It's his website that he built up from the ground up. He's very savvy about starting websites relative to his interest and teaching people. Like, he's interested in fitness, parenting, and now photography. And I've partnered with him to help add blog content and show some behind the scenes stuff. And we're also working on some education programs that people can subscribe to and learn about off-camera lighting. So our next project is a lighting 101 workshop for people to figure out how to do this stuff who never had any exposure to it. So we're going to teach them what to buy, how to set their cameras up, and how to set up their flashes in order to do some beginning off-camera light photography. And my involvement with it and why I enjoy helping photographers with their lighting is I feel like lighting is one of those things that that it's a very elusive thing to photographers when they're starting to do their photography. You see some of this off-camera flash stuff, you see the on-camera flash stuff, and it's all very next-level photography technique that you probably aren't really trying to get too involved with when you're starting out your photography. You're mostly working with trying to figure out the exposure triangle. And once you start getting into flash photography and you start having some breakthrough moments, it really starts to open this whole new world of how you look at light and how it can help your photography. And I feel like if I can help photographers speed up that process, because when I was learning this stuff, I did everything wrong. I made so many mistakes in off-camera lighting that it took me years to make any traction in it to where I really understood what the light was doing, what the devices were doing that I was using, the flashes, the triggers, the camera, and having all that work seamlessly, quickly, and intuitively for you. It's a really tough learning process. I've been doing photography for 11 years, and now I'm finally starting to get some traction with this, and I would love to pass on those aha moments that people have when they're learning off-camera flash.
Okay, well, and I think you're right as far as the beginning photographers. That is one of the first things that they have difficulty with is light, and and when that is controlling what your photograph's going to look like, it's pretty important. But the off-camera flash, that's a big one, and that seems kind of poorly understood at the beginning. I think if they would spend more hours learning that. That would be really money in the bank to up your skill level, or at least the quality of your images.
When I first started doing this, the equipment was expensive, it was cheaply made, and it was hard to integrate and pick up these tools. So like if you wanted to do off-camera light and work with speed lights, for example, there weren't third-party options that were inexpensive. You had to pay $350 to $500 for a name brand flash, and then the only name in the game was Pocket Wizard, which those weren't cheap either. You needed to have a transmitter and then receivers for each flash, and then you needed cords that dangle off the receiver to the flash. It was all a little clumsy. It was a little cumbersome, and now there's all these third-party options out there, which there's a little bit of a debate on the imitators versus the originators, and intellectual property, and who's copying who. But now some of these third-party flashes have innovated some features that I would like to see the first-party companies get into. So the access to the tools is much easier now than it was before. And if I could teach anything to photographers, it's that while they're thinking about the next lens they could be getting and the next camera they could be getting, you could really invest in your photography, learn some easy off-camera flash technique, and get into it for a really cheap price. I put a buying guide up on my on my group for people to be able to buy their own, find their own tools to buy for their off-camera lighting setup, and it's really inexpensive. For less than $200, you could get into a transmitter, a couple flashes, and then you'd need to pick up a light stand and an umbrella adapter to hold your flash, and you can start making better images right away. So instead of spending $1,000 on the next L glass, you could be spending $250 and having an off-camera light setup and start improving the aesthetic of your images with time and practice.
What do you think, Rhonda?
I'm listening. Amazing. His photography is great.
Well, as far as what you're saying is true on the tools of the trade. I recall back in the day, when I was starting in photography, we had this thing called flash bulbs. So if you had enough wire, you could make them do all kinds of stuff. But it was not like it was today, or is today. And we're seeing something. You mentioned something else I thought was kind of interesting, and I'm noticing this a lot too. Is that we're seeing third-party manufacturers of gear that is heads cheaper than the OEM or the original equipment manufacturer stuff. For example, like the Canon speed lights, their top of the line speed light is the EX600 RT, something like that, and it's around $500. And that's a big chunk of change for a light that, it's small, but all things considered, it may not be powerful enough to do some things. But then you've got these devices very similar devices coming from Godox and Yongnuo and some of these other companies like that they're $150 or $160. So there's I guess an opportunity. On the one hand, a lot of people think, well, maybe these aren't as reliable as the original equipment stuff, and maybe they're not. But when you think about, well, for the same money, I could buy 3 or 4 of them, and if 1 or 2 failed, I'd still be money ahead. So I don't know.
I think flashes are a mystery to a lot of people.
Yeah, well,
it just
agree. We all agree on that.
it just goes beyond their. It's like overwhelming for them. What do I do? What does all those little things do on that flash?
And because we have so many photographers who are entering into the marketplace, either they're aspiring photographers or people who are semi-pro, some weekend warriors, and the tools are so easily accessible. There's some great cameras out there for a relatively affordable price, especially if you buy used market. So if you get a lot of the most popular camera right now is the Canon 5D Mark III. The 4 just came out, but the 5D Mark III is very accessible. And the way that camera works and its advantages in how that sensor works, there's a bit of a stylistic look that's kind of becoming universal that I'm seeing a lot of beginning photographers get into. I don't see a lot of consideration for the direction, the shape, the quality of light. What I see is a lot of photographers who are correcting bad exposure. So they've got somebody in the shade and their face is dark, so they expose for the skin on their subject, and you get this overexposed, high key look. A lot of light and airy photography is happening right now. If you want to do something that really sets yourself apart from your peers and your marketplace, off-camera flash is a great way to augment that look. And I think the misconception about shooting with flash is, it looks so flashy, I can tell that there's this light being used. Well, there's a lot of ways to mitigate that and balance the light and make it not so much of a feature of the photo, but an assist to the photo and the light that's already there.
I think the thing about the flash units that, when you're a beginning photographer, you're going to buy, if you're a Canon user, you're going to buy the Canon flash, or if you're a Nikon user, you're going to buy the Nikon flash, or Sony and so on. And then, okay, I bought this flash. How do I attach it to my camera? Well, you slide it into the shoe on the top of the camera where it's supposed to go. And then of course, the assumption is, well, then if that's where it's supposed to go, then all my pictures, whenever I need to use a flash, I'm just going to put it there because it's automatic. It controls the light. I don't have to really know anything. I can just go ahead and use it. But then you get all your pictures have like you say, the flashy look where you've got the light right at eye level, and which is completely unnatural. We only see the sun in that position just a few minutes at sunrise and a few minutes at sunset. Other than that, it's not at eye level. It's not at horizon level. So it's weird. It's a weird light, and it tends to minimize the details. You're trying to take a 2-dimensional image and make it look 3-dimensional, and here you've got a situation where it's flat. The lighting is very flat on the face, so it's probably the worst possible position to actually put a flash in. But that's kind of the we're teaching the new photographers, that's where it should go because that's what the manufacturers have set it up as.
And then that's why they quit trying anymore, because they look and they say, look, it just looks like flash.
Well, how come my picture doesn't look professional? How come I can't make it look professional? Because it looks like everybody else's, because that's where everybody else has their flash, or it's built in and it's from that situation as well.
Direct flash isn't a very flattering look, and when you shoot head on, you tend to get a very flat, filled in. There's no shadow detail. It's not a great look if you're trying to add dimension and detail to your subjects. You want to sculpt them with light, and having it head on is not the best way. And there's some tricks you can do it with on-camera flash to get a little bit of direction. And namely, you want to bounce that flash. So if you're in a room like we're in right now, I could aim that flash head directly left, directly right, pose my subject relative to the direction of where the light's bouncing from, and now I can get short light where the light falls off on the side furthest away from the light where it's hitting. So it's a little more dramatic, a little more cinematic, and you can do that on camera. And I'm very big about teaching that people learn 4 concepts of lighting. That light has an origin, that it has direction, that it has quality in terms of softness or hardness, and that it also has intensity. And those 4 subject things, if you can observe those naturally in everyday ambient light, because I can note that about any light source, like the windows we're sitting next to, or even outside with the position of the sun in the sky. The sun is a hard light source because it's small, it's far away, and it's small relative to your subject. It's very intense. It's got a hard quality to the light, and it has a point of origin. It's up in the sky. So if you can note those 4 qualities of light, you can apply that to off-camera lighting. And those are the core principles that I'm trying to convey to photographers that they need to be paying attention to, and not just their natural light, but an off-camera light too.
Yeah, I agree. There's that thing about light that it travels in straight lines, which sometimes if you can remember that will set you a whole lot closer. But I think we could probably all agree that the best looking flash pictures are where the flash doesn't sit on top of the camera, that it's somewhere else. And usually, and hopefully, but there's exceptions, but sometimes I see new photographers, once they get the flash off the camera, then they sometimes put it a little below eye level, and you get the ghoul lighting, where the light comes from underneath, which if you're trying to do like a candlelight simulation, that could be all right. But other than that, it gets a little weird. And like, really, you got the light off the camera, and why did you put it there?
Campfire light.
Yeah, it's like, well, when it's appropriate, okay. Maybe that's just me. I don't know. See, off the subject, while we're looking at some of these images on your website here, these are actually on the MagMod website. This is a new trend it's new to me, okay, because I'm kind of old. But there is, I'm noticing a lot of the images. Rhonda, have you noticed this, where for an effect, they're decreasing the tonal range, in images. Mm-hmm. Like here, there's no black really in the image. It's a dark gray, but there's not a black, there's white. And in some of these, so I've got a young photographer here we can ask about this. Justin, what's the deal with this where you're limiting the tonal range for effect? Is it just it's just fashion? Is that what's going on here?
I think it's fashionable.
Yeah.
I've always tried to reconcile what style or trends that I'm trying to chase in photography and see where things are going, and the aesthetic look that people are appealing to. And that filmic look is a big thing. So you get a lot of those Visco and like SLR Lounge does presets where they're emulating film look, and you get clipped tonal values in the whites and blacks typically when you're working with older film processes, and that's what they're trying to emulate. So I've taken that to heart in my work, and I've built some custom tonal range tone curves that I apply to my work. In the last year and a half, I've really dialed in a consistent look where I'm applying it to pretty much every set of photos I do, family photos, portraits, weddings, and it's become a signature look for me. I've had people ask me, "Hey, how did you do this look?" And they want to know what my presets are, and it's more of it's hot for me right now. Like, I like it, and maybe a year from now I'm going to change it up. Recently, the thing about it though is that I don't want to clip detail in the darkest parts of the image. So I'm very conscientious towards recovering shadows and making sure, while I do have a clipped black and white black point on the black and white point on the image, that I still push the rest of those values so you can see details and still discern what things are in the darkest areas of the image. So I'm kind of treading a fine line here where I'm still trying to make the image look stylistic, but also keep a full range of values except for my black and white point. And I think it looks cool right now, but the other day I have a company that I'm partnering with, acrylicpress.com, and they're going to be showing my work at their expos next year, like Imaging and WPPI and Shutterfest. And I sent them photos that they wanted to have printed for their display, and I realized these things are acrylic. They're very vibrant, and they look really amazing. They show color so well. I'm clipping the black point, so I actually redid all my images to bring back the black points that I'd clipped, because I want the contrast and the saturation of the images to really pop, and you have to have a full tonal range in order to do that. Mm-hmm. So in other words, I think it's cool, but photography, maybe in competition or judging, I'd probably get docked for losing those clip black points. So it's stylistic, and I think my clients like it, and I'm known for it, and it's a signature look. But there's some purists who probably would disagree with that. Okay.
Well, yeah, and I think that's after you've been in the industry a while, you start to realize that photography does follow fashion. Mm-hmm. You know, there are fashionable things that we like to see something new or something different once in a while. And when I was going to photo school, back in the 70s, composition-wise, you would never crop someone's head off at the top. That you didn't do that. And then here, 10 years ago or so, became very fashionable. Whereas like, you can get a more intimate look if you come in tighter and just chop their head right off. And so there's, and you look at the fashion magazines; those photographers, have driven photography fashions for many years because they're always trying to create some kind of an image that makes you look. It's like, we're going to sell this product, so you're going to have to look at this image, and if we can do that by making it good or bad or just, whatever, so it's different than you look at it. And then that trickles down to the rest of us, and we all think, oh, yeah, that is kind of neat, after all. So maybe the pendulum swings one way or the other. What do you think, Rhonda?
Yeah. The only thing is just everybody starts changing because everybody starts doing the same thing, and then everybody looks the same. It's like, okay, what can I do now that's new and different?
And I think in 5 years, I'll look back on the work that I'm doing right now. I'm like, I can't believe I was doing that to my photos. And I look back 5 years from now, and I'm like, what? I don't even recognize that work. So it's going to change.
Ongoing and changing.
Not married to it.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
it's a cool look, though.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And we do need to mix it up a little bit so that things are different, and we can come up with a look that switches it out. I think it's perfectly fine. So let's talk about MagMods. We talked a little bit about off-camera flash as something that beginning photographers need to aspire to, and that professionals use all the time. And that's part of the way they achieve their results and their looks. Particularly, I would say, I think we're talking about event photography. Like where you do an outdoor portrait, or where you're doing a wedding or a quinceañera or something like that, where you are on location. It's one thing if you have all your studio stuff. If you're bringing them into a studio, of course the lighting is going to be off camera. But to do it as you're running and gunning, then that becomes a whole different deal. And so this is a Tucson company, this MagMod.com, and I know you have a relationship with them. So do you want to maybe give us a little background on this, Justin, on how these guys got going?
Sure. And the founder of the company is Spencer Borup. He was a local photographer. He's still a photographer, but not actively working anymore. I don't think he ever stopped being a photographer, but in the professional sense, he isn't shooting anymore. He did a lot of senior portraits, weddings, and I've had people from other cities tell me, like, Spencer was synonymous with Tucson. When they thought of our best photographer in town, it was him. And his work is very great. Like, I love the quality of his work, the things he was doing with off-camera flash, stuff that I was chasing and wanting to figure out on my own. And Spencer decided that he was tired of all the crap speedlight modifiers that were out there that were using Velcro and cinch straps to put a modifier under the head of a flash. And they were universal, but all flashes aren't created the same size, and it was just clunky, inefficient, and a huge barrier to access. I typically shot with my flashes with nothing on them because there was no need to even put anything on them, because I felt there was no need to put stuff on them because it was too much of a hassle to work with. I was using gaffer tape to put gels under the head of my flash. Yeah, putting gels in the flash was something I just didn't deal with. So the thing about shooting with your flash gelled is it helps match the tone of the color temperature of the ambient light, and it makes for a better, more appealing light quality in your images. So if you're shooting in a tungsten environment, like an indoor incandescent light bulb, like a lamp, you want to throw a full CTO gel on your speed light so the temperature of the light matches the temperature of the ambient light. And that stuff was all a little more frustratingly, it was frustrating to work with prior to the MagMod system. And Spencer came up with this genius idea that he would use silicone rubber grips to attach, to put magnets into these grips that would sit on the head of a flash. And then there's this whole system of modifiers that would attach to the head of the flash through these magnets. And actually I brought some here, so I'm going to show you guys.
For those of you that are watching on our YouTube channel, this will be visually. Otherwise, we will try to describe what we're seeing to you, which the magic of radio, which we kind of have to do that. So this is the type of flash that you would the high end flash unit that you would put on a DSLR or a mirrorless camera, where you've got the articulating head so that you can bounce it off the ceiling, or it can swivel it and bounce it off the wall. And so the first part of this is the attachment. That's a silicone rubber that stretches across the head. So that allows you to, it's got magnets in the sides, and then you can very easily attach the other MagMod accessories onto that. So this thing goes on pretty easy, and you don't have to have any Velcro straps. And it takes a little, and it's on there good enough that it's not going to fall off.
It's not going to fall off.
Yeah, it's not gonna.
It's very strong earth magnets inside the rubber part of the grip. And then I can go and stack modifiers. And before you shooting with MagMod, I never thought I would ever use grids in my off-camera flash work. I never thought like, well, why would I want to make the light tighter? I picked up this kit maybe 2 years ago, the basic kit, and I was committed to giving it a try. And little by little, I started introducing it into my flash work. And it wasn't until I got some practice in with it, I started to see that what a grid does is it controls the spill of light. So you've put a grid on here, and it's very easy to do. It's magnetic. It's hard to pull off, but you can get it off pretty easily if you need to. And the grid controls the beam of light. So we go from, I'm not sure what you can zoom the flash head in on your flash, but it's still a relatively wide spread of light. And you throw a grid on here, and now you minimize the spread of light to 40 degrees. You can stack another grid on here, bring it down to 20 degrees. Put a third grid on there, bring it down to 10 degrees. And now we start to control the light spread, and it becomes a pinpoint spread of light.
Like a spotlight.
Like a spotlight. And you get a very noticeable fall off of light. It's a very distinct pattern of light. And why that's advantageous into your off-camera flash work is you start to put light in a deliberate manner exactly where you intend to. You're not spreading light around willy-nilly. You're not lighting up the ground when you really only want to light up your subject. And that's where we start to really separate our off-camera flash work from beginners, is you put light exactly where you intend to, and it's a very noticeable and discernible light pattern on your subjects.
So this MagMod system then has, you start with the thing that connects it to your flash unit, and that could be any flash unit that has the articulating head. So whether it's a Nikon or a Sony, or it doesn't matter, because it'll stretch to fit most anything that has that your standard flash. And it could be, doesn't have to be, could be OEM, could be the Godox or Young Nuo, or any of those would work with this, it looks like.
It's universal.
Okay, universal. And so then you would, and then you can buy any number of these accessories, which then magnetically attach to the front of your flash unit. So that makes it very fast if you're doing event photography, that you can snap these things on and off real quickly and modify them. They can be combined, I assume, Justin. Mm-hmm. Which makes sense with like the grid and some of the colored gel filters. But then I notice there's some other light shaping tools there as well. There's one that looks like a big globe, that is actually silicone rubber. So it's I don't know what, about 6-7 inches in diameter, and frosted, and it sits on the front. And then essentially what that's doing is it's changing the strobe into something more like what we used to call a bare bulb flash, where back in the days of flash bulbs, you could fold down the reflector, and then you could tilt it up, and then the bulb would fire, and so it would be bouncing light off in every direction. It'd bounce to the front, to the ceiling, to the back, the walls off the side, and give you a very soft lighting effect. So that's what this particular device is replicating here, is the bare bulb flash from that. And there's also, this isn't probably unique. There's those little plastic, those Stoffen diffusers that you can buy that clip on the front of the flash. They kind of do that same thing. I know this one's a larger, and of course it's much easier to take on and off because it's magnetic. Do you have any experience with one versus the other on that, Justin?
Sure, and I've shot with the Stoffen Omni Bounce on my flash heads before. Mm-hmm. And when you're just starting out, you think, oh, this is making my light look softer, mm-hmm. which is a big misconception with small light modifiers. You're not making light softer. You're making it omnidirectional. You're shaping the light, but you're not. The only way to make light softer is to have a large light source relative to your subject. If I were to light Rhonda's face up with the speed light right now, it would only strike a small portion of her face. if I were to put a big umbrella on it, the light source would become bigger relative to her, and you would get nice quality light. It would wrap around her face. You'd have soft, gradual fall off. But with a small point light source, you're getting a harsher light quality because it's not big enough to wrap around her face. Even if I throw this sphere on top of the speed light, and it's really not that much bigger of a light source. If I point at her face right now, I'm still only striking a small portion of her face. It's not large enough to wrap. You could pull it back a little bit and get a larger spread of light, lessen the contrast between the shadows and the highlights on her face. But really, the best way to go about that is a huge light source modifier, like a big octobox, umbrella, or softbox. So the key word that Jay mentioned is that we're shaping light. And so why that is important is we're controlling how the light hits our subjects. It's where this is an omnidirectional light modifier. Like Jay was mentioning, it's kind of like making it into a bare bulb flash. And where this is, what's really great about this is it's distinctly a circular shape. So what's cool is I've used it as a background light, and I've had my subjects hold it in their hand and point it at a wall. And you throw a colored gel in here, and now you get this perfectly spherical shape of light on the wall. It's circular, and then it's got color to it, so it's a very compelling light source. You can background light your subjects and get a cool silhouette from it. And the other cool thing about this modifier is if you pair it with the grid, so I'll put the grid on first and then stack the spear on it. Now the spear reduces the spread of light, and it strikes only the front part of the grid reduces the spread of light, and the light will only hit the front part of the spear. And you get this really cool circular light source with a very distinct fall off of light. And it's one of my favorite combinations of this modifier to use to get a really compelling, distinct look of light on my subjects. I can light up their face and upper torso.
Is that like a spotlight effect again? Is that kind of what we're talking about?
A little bit, yeah. But the light fall off is a little more. There's a better gradation. It's not a harsh, soft light look or spotlight look.
Mm-hmm. They have MagMod has a Facebook page, which we'll link to all this stuff in the show notes, so that you can find all this stuff we're talking about. But they do have a Facebook page where a lot of people contribute their photographs, so that you can see what they're doing. And one of the things that it seems to me like they're doing wrong, but you can correct me if I'm off on this, is that oftentimes they'll use the mag sphere at a distance from their subject, maybe 10, 15, 20 feet away, and outside and at night, and with nothing for the light to bounce off of. So they're diffusing that light or cutting down the light's power by making it a bare bulb type of flash. But the light has nothing to reflect off of. So it seems to me the effect would be identical if you didn't use it, at a distance.
Sure.
With nothing to bounce off of. You notice that? And you can notice it by looking at on the people that are in the shot, the very harsh, distinct shadows, indicative of there's nothing a small light source, a point light source.
Mm-hmm. And where I might use a spear from a distance is to get a greater spread of light. If I throw the spear on here, and I can actually pull out the I'll pull out the inner diffusion panel, the wide angle diffusion panel on the head of the flash, and this is to help make the spread of light greater. I'll throw that on there, and I'll put it on top of the spear, just the spear alone, and I get a greater spread of light from the spear.
So it could be useful for ultra wide lenses or something where you have to increase the wide angle power.
Mm-hmm. And I tend to shoot this off-camera flash, and so I'll light large groups of people, 10, 15, 20 people, shoulder to shoulder, all in one on the single plane, and I'll have this flash pulled back maybe 20 feet from that group and up high, and I'm using it. It's just for fill. It might be late in the day. There's ambient light still from the sun. Maybe I'm in the shade, and I'll use it just for a little bit of off-axis fill to complement the light in the scene. Otherwise, everybody's got a little bit of shadow on their face, but you put in a little bit of fill, just a kiss of light to give some shape and direction to the quality of light on people's faces. And it's a good look. It's a little bit of something to give a little bit of dimension and light quality to my subjects.
So if somebody wants to buy into this system, are these readily available at your local camera store, or they're kind of specialized, so you need to order directly from their website?
Amazon carries them, and some local camera stores carry them, but I couldn't tell you in what local markets who's carrying who's carrying what. But probably the best place to get these modifiers is to go to the MagMod.com website and to buy direct from them. They ship a lot of orders out of the Tucson location here, and I know those guys are working around the clock, especially after Black Friday. And I've got a coupon code for your listeners, so they can use my coupon code. It's my last name, Haugen, Haugen, or they can use my coupon code for my photo group. It's TAPP, TAPP, at checkout. And if I'm not mistaken, it gives you 5% off of orders over 100, 10% off of orders over 200, and free shipping. So it's a good little extra incentive to purchase into the system and spend a little more and get a discount off your products that you're purchasing.
And everybody likes discounts.
And we'll put that in the show notes so that if you don't have to remember that, you can go directly to coolphototools.com and just click on the podcast, and you can see all the show notes, the links that we talked about today, and you know what, we ran out of time. But we're not done. We're not done talking about this stuff yet. So
are we going to drag him into next week? Is that what you're saying?
I'll come back.
Justin, can we impose on you to come back for next week?
Yeah, I'd love to.
Okay.
All right,
everybody. So this is we're coming right up on the holidays here too, aren't we? This is just a few more days before Christmas. So. Gosh, I hope Santa's got my.
I was going to say, Jay, did you get my list?
No. Did you have a list?
I sent it to you last week.
I didn't get that.
You deleted it, didn't you?
No, I didn't get it. No.
That's how he is.
I don't have anything on my list. I bought it all during Black Friday, so now all I want for Christmas is travel. I want to get out of town.
Yeah, well, I always can take gift cards. If I run out of things to want, I can store up. So it's okay. All right, everybody, have a really, really nice holiday, and we will see you after for the Christmas leftovers next week.
Right on. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to the Cool Photo Tools podcast. Sign up for our mailing list at coolphototools.com. Got a question? Send an email or MP3 audio file to info@coolphototools.com. Thanks for listening.